Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Okay, let's start off. Um, we are basically doing Zeno of Elia. Yesterday we were discussing about what Plato said about Zeno in his work, Parmenides. Okay, I had talked to you about this, and I had told you that Plato claims that Zeno was Zeno was basically trying to protect the works of Parmenides, and I was also talking to you about the first thesis of the first argument that Zeno makes. Okay, and I said this, we do not have verbatim. What we have of this is a paraphrasing by Socrates. I'm not going to discuss what is verbatim and what is paraphrasing. I hope you remember that. Okay, the paraphrasing of what Zeno said by Socrates is this: if no, this has to be a capital. If being is many, it must be both like and unlike, because neither like can be unlike, and unlike be like. This is the paraphrase. What, I missed out something here. Oh, mm, and this is impossible. Yeah. Okay. I had told you that this logic in Latin is called reductio ad absurdum. Reduce something to the absurd. Okay, that is what um, it means in English. Reduce to the absurd. And this particular method in Greek, this I didn't tell you yesterday, has a different name. Now, while this has been given to us by, the paraphrase has been given to us by Plato, from here on, what we have is from Aristotle. Aristotle calls this Epikaerima. Okay, is that spelling correct? Yes. Epicheirema is what Aristotle calls this method, and it is actually used in syllogistic arguments. Do you remember what a syllogism is? Hmm? Syllogism is three-step logic. Okay. Now, in the three-step logic, I told you, you can have a general thing, which will be all trees are green, this is green, and therefore this is a tree. Okay, that is a typical syllogism, which is using a deductive mode. But what Aristotle says is that Zeno uh, uses what um, uh, Aristotle says in his book. Aristotle's book is Topics. While he was writing the topics, in this, he talked about Zeno and Epikaerima. Okay. And he goes on to argue an Epikaerima is a dialectical syllogism. An Epicheirema, he calls it a dialectical syllogism. Now, this part here is a bit of a, it's a bit of a complication. Okay, what Aristotle means by an Epikaerima being a dialectical syllogism is where both the propositions, the first one of which is main and the second is a reaction, are either ratified or nullified by a third. Can you see, or do I have to type it elsewhere? Can somebody tell me if you are able to see this? I can't see.
Yes,
It's,
sir. No, sir. Nullified by A. That's the last one.
yeah, I think I'll have to type this again. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of these. Yeah. So Epikaerima or dialectical syllogism, as far as Aristotle is concerned, is where the main proposition or the reaction to the main proposition are either nullified or um, or held to be true by the introduction of an independent but interconnected variable. It's a horrible thing, isn't it? Okay, so if you have a main proposition where you're saying if being is many, right? Then that is, let us take it to be the main proposition. Then if you say the reaction to that is it must be both like and unlike. Okay, so that is the uh, this thing, the second part of the proposition. No, it must be both like and unlike, and this is impossible is the second part of the till impossible is the second part of the proposition. And the third part, which is incidental to this, is because neither can like be unlike or unlike be like. This is the independent thing, irrespective of the main proposition. Okay, even if you just take like can be unlike, it can't be, or unlike can be like, it can't be. You don't have to say that, you know, uh, if being is many, you don't have to say that. So that is the independent variable. The unlike cannot be like, and like cannot be unlike. That's the independent variable. Whether you say that if being is many, and the second part of that is that this is impossible. Okay, this is impossible. Without that, you can still say that. So this is what Aristotle calls a dialectical syllogism, uh, and it is not used much these days. In the modern period, it is we use the dialectics in a very different way. We don't use it as a syllogism, and the purpose of a dialectical syllogism is basically to make sure that you reduce something to the absurd. So that is precisely what Aristotle is doing in his book called The Topics. Okay, in that he talks about Zeno and Epikaerima, in which he says Zeno's argument is a proof of the Epikaerima, which is a dialectical syllogism, and this part that you see is the dialectical syllogism. This part that you can see is the dialectical syllogism. That's how it works. Okay, where you have the main thing, which is if being is many, that is the main thing. Then the response, the second part of the syllogism, is then it has to be like and unlike. And this is impossible. That is the second part. The third thing that is coming into it to nullify, in this instance, to nullify, yeah, yes, Rachna.
Sir, Syllogism means circles, I think. No, sir. Syllogism in arithmetic. How can I can relate with this and that?
What 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 does it mean in
Uh,
error?
Syllogism. Uh, some
Shilloism.
like all cats are rats, like that statements used to give. With the statements, we used to draw some circles and conclusions. We answer that conclusions. How it is?
See, there are different kinds of syllogisms.
Okay.
One kind of syllogism is what I had told. Were you not there when I, which is a deductive syllogism? I'll talk to you about that in greater detail.
Hmm.
This is a subject of logic rather than arithmetic. Uh,
Hmm.
the deductive syllogism
Hmm.
is if all trees are green,
Hmm.
and this is green, this must be a tree. That is how a deductive syllogism works. 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Now here we are only talking about a tree that is green. I mean, we are talking about a generalization which says that everything has to be green. Then we are saying that this is green. Everything has to be green in order to be called a tree. And this is green, and therefore this is a tree. Okay, there is no third independent variable coming here. You can also have an inductive form of syllogism. In an inductive form of syllogism, instead of moving from uh, the generalized to the uh, particular, you start with the particular and you move to a general conclusion, which will be if this is a tree. Sorry, this is a tree, not if this is a tree. This is a tree. This is green in color. Therefore, all trees are green in color. Again, you're starting with affirmative statements, both in the deductive reasoning, where the generalization is an affirmative statement, and the tree being green is also, this being green is also an affirmative statement. And therefore, you reach a conclusion from that. Similarly, in inductive, you start in inductive form of syllogism. You are starting with an affirmative, but instead of a generalization, you are talking about a particular instance. The particular instance is that this is a tree. It's an affirmation. It's an affirmative statement. This is green in color. We are still talking only about the uh, tree and being green in color, and therefore you will say that this is all trees are green in color. So you start with a particular instance and reach a generalization. Okay, whereas if you have to show deductive reasoning, it'll be an inverted triangle, right? It'll be an inverted triangle because let me see if I can draw. These drawing tools are
A statement and affirmations both are same, sir.
not all statements are affirmations.
Hmm.
You can have interrogative statements as well.
Okay.
You can, all affirmations are not necessarily um, not all statements are affirmations. Suppose I give a statement, I don't know if Aristotle should be studied in MA, or let me put it this way, I'm not I'm not very sure if um, I'm not very sure if we should be studying Zeno's Dialectical Syllogism in political science. That is a statement. And it's not an affirmation because I'm saying I'm not sure, or I'm saying I
Statements
don't.
means absolutely true. True.
No, not
No.
necessary. It's not
Okay.
necessary. Not at all. A statement is something that you say. You make a statement. You can make a statement which is true. For example, I give you a statement that all Indians are idiots. How can you say that this is true? If I say all Indians are idiots, okay, I'm giving you an affirmative statement here. But can it be true? How?
No.
Yeah, so they don't have to be true. Statements don't have to be.
Affirmations?
Affirmations, again, all affirmations need not be true either. Okay, if I say we only get leftover students from those who couldn't get into other good universities come to Usmania. That can't be a truism, and it need not be an affirmation. It's a questionable thing. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah. Okay, so this is the independent variable is the like and the unlike. Like cannot be unlike, and unlike cannot be like. That is something we will say is an independent variable, but it is interconnected here, because when we talked about the main proposition, which is that if being is many, it must be both like and unlike. We have said that. So it is while the like being unlike or unlike being like is not sustainable in an independent manner, it is yet an interconnected variable that has been brought in here. Okay, it has been brought in interconnected because you're saying, well, if being is many, then it is this or that. Okay, so for uh, Parmenides and for Zeno, everything is one big gigantic whole, WHOLE, something which is big and gigantic, right? So they don't believe in manyness. So how is Zeno trying to prove that manyness is non-existent? He's trying to do that by taking recourse to a dialectic, which is opposites, like, unlike. He's taking recourse to those and reducing them to the absurd. Like if you take the other statement I made that day, okay, which was um, what was the thing about nothing that I was saying? Um, I what was it? Does anyone remember what I was saying about nothing? We were talking about out of nothing comes nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Huh.
Nothing comes.
Huh. So what was the original of it? Mm,
Um,
I've forgotten the original of it, which is out of nothing, nothing comes. Yeah, that is the original of it. Out of nothing, nothing comes. Right? So that is okay. But if I say out of nothing comes nothing, then nothing becomes a something. And this is independent. So if you say in a syllogistic way, let us say if you believe that in this world there is nothing, then you also have to believe that nothing comes out of this world. If you say that, and then you say, if something comes out of nothing, then that nothing becomes a something. So this is the independent variable you're introducing into the syllogism. That is how you will do it. Okay, in this world, nothing is there. So you don't expect anything, nothing comes. But if you say, out of this nothing, or rather, if you say, out of this nothing comes nothing, then you're saying that nothing is a something. So that is the independent variable. Anyway, let me not confuse you further. If you've got it, you've got it. So this, though in Latin, it's reductio ad absurdum, reduced to the absurd. Uh, it is Epikaerima in Greek, and this is the word that Aristotle uses in order to describe the philosophy of Zeno, and Aristotle's own explanation probably will be a little simpler. Let me try that and see if, let me try to remember what Aristotle said in the topics. Okay, he says a piece of reasoning is proposed as true. So let me put a semicolon here, not a comma. Then what does he say? Let us say by someone. You have to say by X. No. Yeah, a piece of reasoning is proposed as true by X. Then the disputant Y um, breaks the reasoning absurdity. I hope I have got him right. Yeah, a, a piece of reasoning is proposed as true by X. X is a person. Then the disputant of that reasoning is Y. He says this is wrong. How does he prove it wrong? He proves it wrong by breaking the reason into absurdity. So now let us do something here. Now, if we are saying if being is many, This is, let us say X is saying this. Okay. Let us say X is saying this. If being is many, it must be both like and unlike. And this is impossible. No, it must be both like and unlike. And instead of and, I can't do that because this is lousy thing, this whiteboard when you have to. Can I do something here? No, I can't. Just put a semicolon there. The proposition that is supposedly true is if being is many, it,
Sir,
yeah,
like unlike means uh, by considering which one you put this like and mean like poles, unlike poles, how
no,
like and negative or
un,
positive,
anything,
anything.
yeah, anything which is the
The opposition.
opposition. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't put it. This is Aristotle. Okay, I
I
mean um,
statement.
this is Socrates who paraphrased Zeno. This is Aristotle. These
Okay.
two are Aristotle. I am not saying anything which is originally mine. Okay, so let's do this. If being is many, it must be both like and unlike. And put a uh, semicolon in your mind. Just put a semicolon there. Okay, so this is what the first person proposed it as true. That is, X has proposed this as true. The disputant is Y. Okay, and the disputant says this is impossible. Okay, he says this is impossible. That is his main statement, the disputant, right? So if X has said if being is many, it must be both like and unlike, colon, then Y is saying this is impossible. Forget the and, just don't read the and. This is impossible because neither like can be unlike. Okay, like, let us say, is this pen. You can see it, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is, let us say, like. Okay. Then we have this, which is unlike.
Let's
Hmm. This is unlike, right? So Y is saying neither like this can be unlike, or unlike be like. Okay, so this is the manyness thing. This is the manyness, and if this like cannot be like unlike and unlike cannot be like, then where is the manyness? Where is the manyness? If I show objects, it is actually a piece of uh, deductive reasoning. So I shouldn't show objects, but I was trying to show an object. Okay, so if being If being is this is the being, then this is not the being. This is being, this is not being. But if it is manyness, then it is these both. Can it be these both? Because this is like and this is unlike. So this cannot be this cannot be this, and therefore being is one. That is the thing of reasoning where you break it into absurdity. You break it into absurdity. That is what Aristotle is saying. And this is essentially what is called Epikaerima. Okay. And in Latin, it is reductio ad absurdum. Reduce it to the absurd. How can a pen be a cell phone? Look at it that way. If being is a pen, and if it is many, then you can introduce many. You can introduce being is a pen. Now you're saying manyness is this, a wallet, all these things you're including. So is being so many things? The key word is being. Please remember that. Being is our existence, the existence of a person. Can it be this? Can it be a pen, a cell phone, and a wallet? It can't be.
No.
It cannot be. So that is the reduction. That is the reduction into a syllogism. Okay. Uh, Sorry, not into a syllogism, into an Epikaerima.
Absurdity.
Absurdity. Yeah.
Absurdity.
Yes, yes. Absurdity. It's like saying a pen is a cell phone and a wallet. It can't be. So being is the world here. That is the key word. Being. That is the key word. All right. Any other problem? Hmm? Anybody else who has any doubts about it?
No, sir.
The problem with logic is that it is very, very, very difficult, to say the least. The least I can say is that logic, understanding logic, is most difficult. I was a very ambitious person, and in my um, degree days itself, I went and bought this book of Aristotle's, which is about logic, but it is called Prior and Posterior Analytics. Okay, that's the name of the book. Prior and Posterior Analytics. In that also he talks about the Epicurema. He doesn't talk about Zeno there. He talks about Zeno in the topics, but in prior and posterior analytics, he talks about Epikaerima. Okay. And I struggled and struggled. I went to my teachers who couldn't help me. So I thought there must be some way out. And I went and bought myself a book which said Logic by Cohen and Nagel. I said, maybe this if I read this, then I'll understand Aristotle. So I bought that book. And it turned out to be as difficult and as dense as Aristotle's prior and posterior analytics. It probably was worse because it also goes into mathematics, okay, into Rachna's favorite subject, arithmetic. It goes into
This
that.
philosophy, yes, sir. All these are philosophies only, no, sir.
Yeah, they are all philosophies, ma'am. And all early philosophers considered themselves to be mathematicians, both
Mm-hmm.
in ancient Greece and in ancient India. All philosophers
Okay.
were mathematicians. Let me, now that
Mm-hmm.
I've digressed a bit anyway, let me give you one example of a man who wanted to be a philosopher in the classical sense of the term. Thomas Hobbes. He tried to project himself as a mathematician. If you actually read the Leviathan, and if you read parts of the Leviathan in which he is talking about uh, the kingdom of darkness, in that he tried to use maths, and he was such a poor mathematician that it looks like a small child. Okay, so the later versions of it apparently removed the section where he tried to give a mathematical demonstration of what he was trying to say because he didn't know much of maths. Another funny case in point being Francis Bacon. If any of you are familiar with English literature, you will be uh, you will all be aware of the fact that you know Francis Bacon is a very famous person because of his supposed invention of this form of writing which is called the essay. And Francis Bacon was so conceited that he thought he was a scholar of Latin, and if you had to be anything worth something, you have to write in Latin. He wrote in Latin and nobody bought anything. So he was forced to write in English, and that is when people started buying his essays. But otherwise, when he wrote in Latin, people said, "Who the hell is this fellow and why is he writing in Latin?" Okay, that is what happened to Francis Bacon. But more interestingly, Hobbes, trying to be a mathematician, became a matter of uh, a joke. Okay, he was laughed at, and so much so that they removed vast sections of those things from his writings, which were supposedly mathematical. So, therefore, uh, please remember one thing, that all ancient philosophy, Greek or Indian or Egyptian, okay, people will say don't call it Egyptian, call it Mesopotamian. I don't know which is correct. I am not very sure if Mesopotamia covers all of Egypt. So I prefer to call it Egyptian. So among the three ancient civilizations, you will find that it is mathematicians who were philosophers. One extremely striking example, who is next in line, is Pythagoras, whom everybody knows as Pythagoras, but I've been told that the correct pronunciation is Pythagoras. And we'll be talking about these people too. Sophists, including Socrates, mathematicians, Plato, mathematician. How many of you knew that Plato was a mathematician? Hmm? How many of you knew that he was a mathematician? Nobody?
Yes, sir.
Yes means you didn't know or you
Didn't know,
knew?
sir.
Didn't
Don't know.
know.
Didn't know.
Uh, Plato was a mathematician. And
Don't know.
Aristotle, despite shunning mathematics or mathematics actually, despite shunning it, if you read his prior and posterior analytics, and if you read his topics, in all these books, he is also writing mathematically. All proofs and disproofs are those which are generated mathematically. So, when I was a kid, I thought I was good at maths, but for some strange reason, I keep joking with my mother that it is because of her that this happened. Because every day my study time was 7 in the evening, it used to begin. And my mother would come and say, let's start. And we would start with maths. And in those days, we basically didn't have only one form of maths as you have today, which is called modern maths. We had a very difficult form of mathematics called composite maths and an easier thing called general maths. And I hated the fact that I will be seen as dumb. And therefore, what I did is I took composite maths. And my mother, who was a maths teacher, 7 o'clock promptly, sharply, she would land up with a mathematics book and say, let's start. And I would say, why? Why should we do maths every day? Really, why should we do maths every day? Why can't we start with something else? But she'd say, no, maths is the most important thing. You have to know maths for everything. Logical thinking will develop only if you have maths. So I acceded. I got very good marks because I was pretty good at maths. I don't have a mathematically challenged brain. But I decided that I will not study maths. So in my intermediate, I went and did BPC, which was all right till the time when dissections came. When the dissections came, I couldn't dissect a frog. And if in my practical exam, if a frog came for dissection, I would have failed intermediate. Okay, I was very lucky. I got an earthworm. I had to expose its nerve ring, so I did that. And then I decided, no Izzat ka sawal and all that, let me go and do a BA. And I liked literature. But that's all a different story. Let me not tell you my story here. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that when in MA, when I was very attracted by political theory slash political philosophy, I realized that you have to know maths. I absolutely had to know maths. And even doctors have to know maths now, because they, if they have to see the reports generated, especially about, uh, you know, jaundice and typhoid, if they have to know, they have to read the report, not just the conclusion. They also have to see if the calculations are correct. And those they have to do mathematically. So please don't think that those who take biology don't need to know maths. You have to know some level of maths. It makes life much, much, much easier. Really, it does. And I have no shame in admitting that I was very wrong. My maths teacher, he was very fond of me. I had two maths teachers, and both of them were very, very fond of me, especially Mr. Rasool. And when I told him I'm doing, because he was also my NCC officer, when I told him I'm going for BPC, he was heartbroken. He said, Satish, you of all people are going to BPC. Why are you doing that? You should take MPC. Consider your. I wish I had taken his suggestion, but then I also say I learned a lot of other things by doing BPC, because I'm pretty much a quack. I'm not, I can do some basic medicine, I understand pretty well. So I don't regret it. I learned another thing. So anyway, so this is Epikaerima, which Aristotle says was used to great effect by um, Zeno. And interestingly, a few centuries, or probably many centuries, the Latin philosopher Seneca the Younger. The reason why he's called younger is because there was a contemporary of Cicero who was also called Seneca. He was the original Seneca, original in the sense he was born before this man, and therefore he was the first Seneca. Uh, but this man was more of a philosopher than the elder Seneca. He was also, even though the Romans are not known for their mathematics so much, Seneca the Younger was pretty good in mathematics. Any idea why the Romans were not very good in mathematics? Will somebody throw some light? Anyone? Why is it that the Romans were not very strong in mathematics? The strongest were the Indians, by the way, more than the Greeks. Okay, the Greeks couldn't calculate eclipses. They couldn't calculate the periodicity of comets. They couldn't do all that, despite being, and their mathematics was mainly geometry. We'll talk about that when we come to, but Indian mathematics is a killer. And I didn't know that there is another kind of maths in India called Vedic Maths. Okay, and Vedic Maths is a completely different kettle of fish. So at this ripe old age, I'm trying to learn both Sanskrit and Vedic Maths. Not making much progress. That is another thing altogether, but I'm trying. Vedic Maths is very different from every other maths. And like Sanskrit, you can say all this in just these 3 words. That is the beauty of Sanskrit. Even Vedic Maths is like that. The number of steps that you have in Vedic Maths are very few, but they are absolutely, it's not a shortcut. It's amazing how people did maths in those days. No aids, no paper, no pen. They did it by writing in the sand. Most of the calculations were done by writing in the sand by the ancients in India. Okay, so it's an amazing, tremendous achievement. They could predict an eclipse to a millisecond without any computational devices, without any instruments, without all those, they were able to do that, which is amazing. Yeah, so let's get back to this. But the question is, do you have an idea why Romans are bad in maths? Rachana, are
No,
you still there? Yeah, Akshay, sorry.
no, sir.
No, sir means?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know. Rachana seems to be the mathematician. So let's ask her. Rachana, are you still there or have you left?
She left, sir.
She left. Good. She thought enough of this fellow and his stupid maths. So let's go. Well, the problem that Romans mainly had was their numerals. Okay. X, this is 12. Okay. X is 10. C is 50. Okay. So you don't have numerals, you have letters that have a numerical value. So how do you put a decimal? How do you put 12.4? How do you create irrational numbers? How do you create fractions? All those things were not known to the Romans, not even known to the Greeks. It was actually Einstein who said India is the cradle of world civilization because it gave us maths. If somebody had told me when I was in school that one day I will be saying these things about maths, I would have probably killed myself. Anyway, so let's get on with it. So, Seneca the Younger, he had something to say. He had something very, very interesting to say. For him, I mean, no, not for him. He said, if I am trying to quote him verbatim, if I accede to Parmenides, there is nothing left but one. Okay. If I accede to Parmenides, there is nothing left but one. No, sorry. If I accede to Zeno, not even the one is left. That's what he said. If I accede to Parmenides, there is nothing left but one. And if I accede to Zeno, not even one is left. Everything becomes nothing. Okay. Now, Zeno basically thrived by creating what are called paradoxes. Anyone who can tell me what a paradox is?
Two opposite things. Paradox. Open
Mm-hmm.
secret.
Sorry,
It
sorry.
may it is a literary term, sir, which contains two opposite words.
Contradictions.
Contradictions.
Yeah. Paradoxes are self-contradictions. Okay. Now, I am only I am only going to tell you what the paradoxes of Zeno are. I'm not going to explain them to you. One, because it is beyond me. If I sit and work for about 2 days, I'll probably be able to explain. But really, there's no need for those kind of things. These again were brought to light by Aristotle. He called them Zeno's paradoxes. So, what are Zeno's paradoxes? Okay, this, by the way, is not in the topics. He doesn't talk about this in the topics. that is Aristotle's work. He talks about it in Physics. Aristotle's book Physics is where you find Zeno's paradoxes. Okay. And Aristotle basically says that the paradoxes of Zeno are arguments against the idea of motion and change. Please remember that Zeno is supposed to have written whatever he wrote to prove Parmenides right and to prove that there is no such thing called movement. Okay. And there is no such thing called change. And I also told you that Parmenides and uh, Heraclitus had exchanged a lot of um, barbs, B-A-R-B-S, about this, whereas Heraclitus believed that everything is in flux, changing. Parmenides believed that nothing changes, there's no motion. All movement, motion is illusory. Okay, so I'm only going to name the paradoxes of Zeno. I'm not going to basically uh, get into them. The first paradox that Zeno posited is called Achilles and the tortoise. We in India pronounce this as tortoise, but it is not tortoise. It is tortoise. English being the stupid language it is. Has anyone heard of Achilles?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you know about Achilles?
There is a word called Achilles heel,
What is that?
weak point.
Why? Why is it the weak point? Achilles heel?
He was a Greek hero, sir. Greek character.
Yes, but why was his heel his weak point?
I don't know, sir.
Well, Greek mythology basically says that Achilles, when he was born, his mother dipped him in the river Styx. Have you heard of it? This river?
Didn't hurt, sir.
Okay. River Styx is a mythological river. It's not a real river. It was supposed to flow underground and it had magical properties. And if you were dipped in the river, then you would be uh, immortal. Nothing, no weapon, nothing can hurt you. Nothing can hurt you. Okay. So, therefore, Achilles' mother took him to the river Styx. She held him, he was a baby. She held him by the heel of one of his legs and dipped him into the river and pulled him out. The part that she held, the heel that she held, did not get dipped into the river. So Achilles, who was otherwise invincible and immortal, could be killed if you shot an arrow at his to his heel. Okay, so that's the reason why a point which is the weakness of somebody is called Achilles heel. And incidentally, the death of Achilles happens the same way, which is an arrow pierces his heel and he dies. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died. So, Achilles and the tortoise, it has to be drawn as a diagram and shown, which I cannot do, I am afraid. So, we don't need it either. So, let's not get too carried away and try to do things which you don't need to. But you have to know these paradoxes, it'll be helpful. The second one is the dichotomy. You know what is a dichotomy? School botany? Anyone? Cotyledons?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are they called? What are the
Dicotyledons.
yeah
Cotyledons.
monocotyledons and dicotyledons? Right? A dichotomy is an opposition. That is also a paradox, by the way, in mathematics. Okay, so dichotomy, this is equations. Then you have the arrow, and the fourth one that he talks of is these are the four paradoxes of Zeno. It is through these, no, please don't expect me to teach them. Okay, it's beyond me right now. And even if I do, we'll be wasting time over nothing. These are things which demonstrate what uh, Zeno wants to defend, which is that there is no motion, There is no such thing called movement or motion, and there is nothing that changes. So that is what is talked about by Zeno. Okay, now I'm just wondering if I had some other things. Let me quickly finish this off today so we can go to Pythagoras tomorrow. Um, this whole thing starting with I hope you still remember Xenophanes.
Of colophon.
Yeah. Through Parmenides, Zeno. Let's see if we'll talk about Protagoras when we talk about Plato. He's one of the characters who appears in Plato's books. Not a character as in a fictional character, but he's a real person. Protagoras, starting with Xenophanes through Parmenides, Zeno, and Protagoras. This system of thought culminated in Pyrrho. Okay, and his philosophy is actually called Pyrrhonism. Right? And these were the people who are prominent. I'm just mentioning to give you a broad picture of what it was. And Pyrrhonism, I want you to remember this, is philosophical skepticism. And philosophical skepticism we'll look at in the modern period when we have to touch upon one Rene Descartes. We've already talked about him. I think Akshay was did did we talk about Rene Descartes? I think therefore I am.
Yes, sir. Cogito ergo sum.
You told me in English, no? I think therefore I am.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll have to go back to that when we come to the modern period. This is philosophical skepticism, Pyrrhonism. Pyrrho came from Elis. So he was called Pyrrho of Elis. There are some cock and bull stories about Pyrrho having come to India. He might have come to India, I don't know, but having been influenced by Buddhism. That seems completely like a cock and bull story.
Sir,
So, yeah,
this Pharaoh is the pharaoh of Egypt or
no, he's a Greek. He's not the
someone?
pharaoh. This is not that Pharaoh.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Or Pyrrhonism is also called philosophy of the Hellenistic period. Are you aware of Hellenistic period? Anyone? Have you heard this? Hmm?
No, sir.
Yeah,
Didn't hurt.
Hellenistic. Sorry?
Didn't hurt, sir.
Okay. Hellenistic period is the period of decline in Greek uh, in Greek history. Okay, decline as in this is a particular period, unlike the Milesians who are trying to explain the world, unlike Plato, Aristotle, who are trying to tell you how to make life better, how to make things better. The Hellenistic period uh, degenerates. It degenerates into Stoicism. Why is this double S going on happening? Um, Skepticism, cynicism, and Epicureanism. It degenerates into. Have you heard of Stoicism? Stoics? Anyone?
Yes, sir.
What is Stoicism?
Being emotionally strong, not changing.
Mm, Not really. Stoicism is putting up with whatever life throws at you without complaining. So, yeah, maybe it's being emotionally strong. A stoic or uh, stoicism basically means that you don't expect great things out of life. You take whatever it throws at you, and you do so without complaining. That is stoicism. Skepticism is doubting. I think you know it,
Yes, sir.
right? A skeptic is one who doubts. Now, when you say it is a philosophical school, um, it is where people are skeptical about the ability of the human being to actually understand the world. Okay, they are skeptical about it. Cynicism is an extension of this, which is they are absolutely sure that you can't find out anything about the world. There is nothing good in this world. Okay, everything that is there in this world is complete balderdash nonsense. Put up with it. Now, Epicurus and Epicureanism are slightly different. Okay, Epicureanism comes from Epicurus, who was actually a cripple. And Epicurus argued that there is no such thing as soul. When we start with Pythagoras tomorrow, we'll start talking about the soul. Epicurus argued that there is no such thing as the soul. Okay, and he said the body is just matter, it's energy. There is nothing like right and wrong, and he says all this is man-made rubbish. So he is somebody who says live life to the fullest like there is no tomorrow. Drink, enjoy. Okay, and somebody in Hyderabad apparently knew Epicurus very well, because he opened a bar called Epicurus Bar and Restaurant. So initially I was impressed that he knew Epicurus, but I later on felt very bad that a philosopher has ultimately become the name of a bar. Okay, and it didn't look like a good bar from outside. I don't know how it was inside. So Epicurus said there is no life after death. There is nothing. Life, when it ends, it is cessation of energy. And uh, he talked about thinking like this and enjoying life will provide you with ataraxia, which can be roughly put in English as relief. Oh God, what is my typing? So he said philosophy should be all about ataraxia, enjoy yourself. Okay, get relief from this nonsense. And he also basically argues that you can attain ataraxia by suspending all your existing beliefs. Okay, he believed that you have to suspend all your existing beliefs about the world, then enjoy yourself, have fun, drink, dance, make merry, and that will give you ataraxia. Not just ataraxia, but he also talked about how that would lead to hedonism. Hedonism is used in the context of Jeremy Bentham in your syllabus, I think. It has nothing to do with Bentham. Hedonism is a Greek concept. The pursuit of pleasure is not hedonism. The pursuit of ataraxia is hedonism. Okay, so I'll end it today. It's 10:40. So tomorrow we'll do Pythagoras. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
those
sir.
of you
Thank you,
who
sir.
stayed on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.